Oops. All right. Thank you everyone for coming. Welcome to our second edition of Literacy for Library Staff. This one is called Circulating Connections, and today we're going to look at LinkedIn and your public presence and how to stand out. We're also going to spend some time talking about how volunteering will develop your skills and leveraging networking opportunities. Next slide, please.
I'm trying to do it.
I also want to say that there was some technical difficulties last time, and it was my fault, not Kelsey, so do not blame her. Um, so this session is hosted by Metronet. Metronet, if I think there are some of you who are outside of Minnesota today, Minnesota is very unique where we have these multi-county, multi-type library systems that serve all types of libraries in their region. Metronet serves the Twin Cities metro area. I'm Stephanie Slaughter. I'm the programming librarian here at Metronet. I started here in June, but before that, I was in public libraries. I'm originally from Honolulu, Hawaii, so my library career started there with the Hawaii State Public Library System. I'm going to pass it off to Ann Walker-Smalley.
That's me. I'm Ann Walker-Smalley. I'm the director of Metronet, and I've been the director at Metronet for a long time, 20 years or so. And prior to that, I was a library consultant. I worked with a lot of the library systems that are in Minnesota doing various, mostly LSTA funded projects. And I worked for the State Library of Minnesota for approximately 15 minutes before I was laid off. But before that, I'd taken a 10 or so year sabbatical because we had moved to Minnesota from the Washington, D.C. area. And just as an aside on jobs in Minnesota, I would look at the jobs that were offered and I'd think, I wonder if that's part-time, just based on the salaries. So I did a lot, and I also had a young child to raise. So I did that and did a lot of freelance writing, curriculum, grant writing, and that sort of thing. And one fateful day, I saw the job ad, and I mentioned this to Kelsey and Stephanie earlier in the newspaper for the state library position, and then went through a whole series of things. But this whole series would have been very useful to me when I decided to re-enter the library profession. And now I get to introduce Kelsey, who is our expert. She's an HR consultant, and she worked with me on a variety of projects, including updating our employee handbook, but also in directing the hiring process for the programming librarian. And it was a great process. I learned a lot. We ended up with an excellent employee in Stephanie, and I'm going to let Kelsey tell you all her um, great characteristics.
My great characteristics. That's kind of you, Anne. As Anne said, we have been working together for, I was thinking about this, Anne, and it's been over a year now that we have been working together, which is exciting. And also time flies when you're having fun and you like the people that you're working with. So, um, this series was born out of, well, I'll talk about it in a minute. I'll talk about myself quick. We'll do some introductions and then we'll talk about where the series was born. I was born in Minnesota, born and raised, but have lived in different places throughout my life, including New Orleans, including Italy, including Mexico. And funny enough, not all career paths are linear, kind of like Anne mentioned. And so my degrees, I have a bachelor's in Italian and linguistics and a master's degree in linguistics, and ended up in HR and couldn't be happier. Um, and so I have a lot of experience, more than 10 years, started in recruiting. So things like job searching, interviewing, LinkedIn, even though it's changed a lot over the years, public presence, all of these things. That's where I got my HR start. And since then have spent the last 10 years building and scaling teams as well as the HR function. So I've built out the HR function more than once for multiple companies, either experiencing rapid growth, getting to a point of acquisition. I really believe, as it says on the screen, that these successful business outcomes and what I've been able to accomplish in human resources are a direct result of my curiosity and care for people. And really prioritizing always relationships. I now work as a senior HR consultant with small and medium and growing companies like Metronet, to make sure that we're putting together programs that are good for them and for people. I really do believe that what is good for people is good for business. And it also talks about how I am a real person and not just a blazer behind a desk writing people up in HR. You can also find me occasionally in the jungle with some Mexican jungle puppies. I love playing games with the family, traveling, and as seen in the photo, petting all of the dogs. Anne and I originally connected on essentially being matchmakers for resources. I think that librarians, I keep telling her that I feel like I've missed my calling as a librarian. And she reminds me that I am helping people, matching them with other resources. So I love that, but I really enjoy HR so that I can help people get what they need, facilitate conversations, as well as help them discover their strengths in roles that helps them leverage those to do well in whatever they find success in and put them in a position to succeed. So I think jobs change people's lives. I take these things very seriously, and I'm going to stop telling you about myself now, and I want to hear more about you. So if everyone here could please write in the chat your name, your current role, even if you're not in libraries, your current location. I know that this session we had more people from outside of Minnesota compared to last session, as well as your social media platform of choice. How do you use it? Okay. Steph, are we getting some good things in the chat?
Not yet, but they will
Not yet.
arrive.
They're writing?
Yes.
Okay. I use social media the most on LinkedIn, which I think makes sense because of my job. I'm not a big social media user. I've never had Twitter, I or TikTok, but Facebook, Instagram, those things. But my social media platform of choice is LinkedIn. Does anyone else, is LinkedIn their platform of choice? Does anyone use it regularly, often? Not at
Dan says
all.
he uses it.
Great. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about um, the series. So these sessions are designed like a book in a series where each one can be standalone and hopefully is good, but there will be reoccurring themes throughout that build off of each other and connection between them. So you can absolutely attend one or all, but again, they are designed so that you get the most out of them if you attend them together. Um, the so last week we talked about cataloging yourself, discovering your strengths and characteristics for career success. Next week we're going to be talking about resumes and cover letters in our session Right on Track. And then on the 20th, we will be going through on the record do's and don'ts for interviews. Um, I also design these sessions to be as helpful as possible, and again, to create and foster that community. And I think that that's best and most easily done through conversation and connection. And so we've done introductions, but ideally, if everyone would feel comfortable taking off your screensaver and turning on your camera, I want everyone again to feel very comfortable at any time to interrupt me, to ask me questions. Because again, we want these sessions to be full of connection and we want them to be as helpful as possible. Okay, so let's talk about, we'll do a quick previously on the session. Last week we did this activity. Anyone who was with us can attest to this. It was definitely a little bit challenging and fun. And so what we had everyone do is the hardest part, of a job search, which can be figuring out what are they good at, what do they want, and taking a hard look in the mirror. So last week we had everyone take on a sheet of paper, write down 4 sections: skills, experience, values and priorities, and personal characteristics. And we had everyone write down minimum 7 in each category, because what you're doing there is you're creating the magic mix of you. There is literally no two people who are going to have the exact same lists. They're not going to have that magic mix, and being uniquely you is what gets you hired. And so you'll hear me reference today that session multiple times, because having that activity done and having that list of experiences, skill sets, values and priorities, personal characteristics are all things that are going to set you up to be put into your LinkedIn profile. Does that make sense? Did anyone who attended last week, um, let's reflect on that. Um, how did it go? We also talked about, if you got stuck, talk to your friends and family. Did they help you brainstorm? What's feedback that you receive from people that might not be obvious to you or surprise you? What do people compliment you on? Because while the feedback that we got is that 7, when we were doing the activity, that 7 things in each category was hard. Um, and it should not be. It should be easy. We're all have a lot to offer and an experience. And so those of you that participated last week, did you spend any time reflecting on this or doing this activity, refining it, adding to that list after we spent time together last week?
Janine just asked about the recording from last week. We will put it up on our website. We're working on format, etc. But that is a good question. Thank you.
Dan, I'm going to call on you. How did it go?
Um, yeah, I didn't think about a lot about it until like the last day or so, but I'm actually in a job search process, where I was actually reaching out to a reference, and they're like, "Hey, can you let me know what some of your strengths are for this position?" And I was actually struggling to come up with specific things at first again, and I got a little sense of deja vu as I started. Yeah, so it's like, oh, I should have reviewed this.
So having them on the list
Yeah,
is is a good reference point,
yeah.
right? Erin, you also attended our session last week. I don't know if your volume's going to work this time, but what was the reflection, and were you able to think about it more in the past week? Um,
I was able to think about it more. I found it really helpful to directly ask friends and family,
mhm.
as you suggested last week. And it was really eye-opening, and it made me think, like, get more introspective for sure. But it was surprising how many adjectives I got uh, to
It's
help,
good.
and how many people had. I got I got some surprise that people um, didn't seem didn't seem like they'd ever been asked that before to
Yeah,
directly speak about that about their friends and family. So that was it was interesting and enlightening.
I bet it was fun to hear how they think about you, and when you have all of those things laid out on a piece of paper, and you especially have gotten that feedback from family and friends. I always like looking at it, and I feel sometimes a little impressed with myself, because I don't think that we always give ourselves the credit that we should. And so looking at that again, that magic mix of you, no one else can be you. And when you show up authentically in a job search, that's when you're going to have the most success in landing something that is a good match for your skills, your experience, your values, or your priorities, and your personal characteristics.
I was
So
having a conversation with somebody about this too, and they were getting embarrassed about talking about themselves like this. And so we worked together and kind of phrased it as talk about the it through the lens of the job. And so if you can list your skills in, I am good at these kinds of programs, or I'm good at this, whatever, then it feels less embarrassing because it feels like you're talking about the job instead of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who were not able to join us last week, and this is the first time that you're seeing it, like Stephanie said, we will be adding the slides and the recording to the website. And if you have a chance, I really recommend doing this activity because it not only is enlightening, fun, but makes some of the other things that we're going to talk about, like LinkedIn profile, resumes, cover letters, all those things coming up next week, a lot easier to do. So that reflection and documentation really is the first step to a successful and an authentic job search. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns, jokes, stories?
I added a few things after last week, just, thinking over, what have I been doing in the last week? So in my notebook, which I don't go anywhere without, I have that page. So I just added a few things. So I think that's one thing to think about too, that it is a process. You don't have to make your list in one afternoon and be done with it.
No, and that's a really good point that I'm glad you're bringing that up, Anne, because in that presentation, we also talked about having a brag board. And so keeping a running list of compliments you receive, projects you finish that are maybe new, so that you have all of those things in one place so that when you are again creating your LinkedIn profile, a resume, you're talking about an interview, you don't have to think back all like, oh wait, what did I do last year at work that was really big? You have it all in one place. And so having that brag board is also helpful when you're looking at that activity as well. Cataloging yourself.
One of the things too, I want to capture is what Dan said when he reached out to somebody or they reached to him to say, what are your strengths for this position? I think we'll talk more about that in a future session, but I also think preparing your references with these great things that you are and do is really important so that they can specifically address your characteristics in the light of a job.
Yeah. I get asked this question all the time, and I'm wondering if anyone else has ever thought this. Can a company look up my personal social media as part of the hiring process? Can they? Do you think they do? I mean, the answer is on the screen, but has anyone thought about this before? Have they been like kept up at night thinking about this? Like, what are they looking for? What are they going to see? Why are they doing it? Can they do that? Is that even legal? Has anyone thought that before? Yeah. So the answer, as it says on the screen, is yes, they can, and they absolutely will. Just like if any of you have experience dating, have you ever Googled the person or looked up the social media of the person that you're going to go on a date with? You want to have as much background information going into that as possible. Recruiters do the same thing. So can they? Yes. Do they? Yes. As long as they are not using that information that they discover from those personal social media accounts to illegally influence their hiring decision. So protected characteristics regarding um, race, age, sexual orientation, all of those protected classes. If someone uses personal social media to discover those things and then therefore uses something that is then therefore discrimination to not give them the job, that's illegal. But if they're just checking you out, like you're checking someone out before you're going to go on a date with them, that's fair game. So really common platforms are Twitter, of course, Twitter. Well, no, they call it X now, right? Oh man, I'm dating myself. So Twitter X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I recommend people, especially in their job search, to Google yourself. That can be really enlightening. Not just the articles that come up, but maybe old photos from you in college that you would not post today as a professional you can come up. So look at all of your things. Look at your social media accounts, look at your Facebook, your Instagram, check your privacy settings, Google yourself. Um, And, I say that job seekers need to plan for anything and everything about them that can be found on the internet could be used as part of the screening and hiring process, again, as long as it's not illegal, which can include a lot of things. So you might be thinking, what are employers looking at as part of that screening process? Why are they looking at my things? And so employers are looking at how are you communicating? What are you engaging with? What do you care about? Are you contributing negatively to the internet? Are you getting into online arguments with internet strangers, right? All of these things are creating context and background information about you. And they're starting to evaluate, can they see you in the role that you're applying for? Does that make sense? Did anyone just Google themselves really quick and saw like old dance scores or something? No? Okay. Today we're going to talk about LinkedIn. This is something that some people use, not everyone does. And today we're going to be talking a lot about the mechanics of it and some of the things that you definitely should know and how to create certain pieces of your profile so that you are easy to find and connect with, so that you can be a good community member. So as my grandma says, since you've got it, flaunt it. We're going to talk about our skills, our characteristics, our values, our priorities, our experiences. All of that is going to be showcased on LinkedIn. Connect and engage. Your network is your net worth. Leverage the power of your community. Before you got on the call today, and I think a lot of people can likely relate to this. Anne was talking about how many of the jobs that she's had in her career have been through someone who've recommended her. And Anne herself is an incredible connector. She'll say, "Have you met this person? They're really good at that." Or you're looking for this skill set or this problem to be solved. You know who you should really talk to? And so LinkedIn is a place that you can do that virtually beyond just in person. And then, as many of you probably know and have used it before, it's also a job search tool to explore and land new opportunities. So Anne makes fun of me for this one, and that's okay. But I will continue to reinforce creating a custom URL. So the default URL, which I learned is short for unique resource locator, is just a series of numbers and letters which can be long and messy and difficult to remember or include on documents. Um, Especially if they're long and messy and a bunch of letters and numbers, it's easy to get them wrong or um, to add a letter or a number that's not in there, or to get it wrong, right? So I think it's really important to reserve your little space on the internet that you can duplicate and put on all of those different things by creating a custom URL. LinkedIn makes it really easy to do that, and so it gives the directions on here in order to do that. And I also included some screenshots. So when you're on editing your profile in the top right-hand corner, it's going to say public URL, a public profile and URL. As I'm moving my cursor on the screen, can you all see that? Or am I just circling this pencil for nothing? Okay, Anne can see it. Great. So you'll click here first. It's in the upper right-hand corner, and then on the second screen, it'll say edit your custom URL. So again, you'll click on this little pencil. I highly recommend using some variation of your name. Otherwise, using something easy and something not embarrassing. You don't want like hot girl 1 2 3 4 5, or maybe you do. I'm not sure if that's your brand, but choose something that's easy to remember. Ideally, again, that you feel confident putting on resumes, email signatures, business cards, or in a document, that makes you easy to find and also looks professional. So this here is going to be, again, professional, creates better visibility and makes job applications a little bit easier when, how many job applications have you ever filled out and it asks you to include your LinkedIn profile? Anyone done that? Yes. Did everyone here know about the custom URL? Do they already have it reserved? Yes, no, maybe so. Okay. So we have a good mix there. Okay. So, next is the headline and industry section. So your headline is going to help capture attention. It's going to boost recruiter and network visibility with keywords, as well as communicate your value. Um, so by default, LinkedIn makes it your current position unless you change it. Um, so this is a good place again to have keywords that can help boost visibility and showing up in recruiter searches. So rather than me having senior HR consultant at Renard Consulting would be my default headline. I've changed it to add things like talent acquisition and human resources, um, so that it more broadly covers the areas that I have experience in and where I also want to be doing work. Another positive about that is that when I switch jobs, say for example, I leave Renard Consulting and I go to work at McDonald's, I also don't have my headline immediately showing everyone that I like switch jobs, which can be a good or a bad thing, but I like the consistency of being able to be known for the specific things that I do in the areas that I work in, rather than the specific position that I have right now. Okay. The other thing is that on that profile, you can list your industry. So industry is a drop-down menu within the edit function. So you'll again click on the little pencil in your profile with your picture and your basic information, and there's going to be an industry section with drop-downs. So you'll start to type it in, and what's going to pop up is what's already populated on LinkedIn. And so before today's session, I did look for relevant things to this group, and libraries as an industry recognized by LinkedIn, museums, historical sites, and zoos is a specific industry specified or recognized by LinkedIn. Museums standalone are their own industry, potentially nonprofit organizations, things like that. But that's again something that you'll want to make sure that you have identified on your profile. Choose what best matches your work, your company, or maybe even the industry that you'd like to get into. I know that we have some students here who have different experience that they are leveraging to get into a library position. But if that's what your goal is, it's totally fine for you to put libraries there. Am I talking too fast? Okay. Contact info. So make it easy for the right people to get a hold of you. So make sure that the contact info section is filled out with your customized URL that you just reserved, your little place of the internet in our last slide or 2 slides ago, and the email address where you'd like to be contacted. Adding your phone number and a physical address are optional. I don't want strangers calling me or knowing where I live, so I don't include those, but everyone has different preferences. I would also recommend to the group not making your work email address unless you are leadership or you own the company, making your work email address that um, contact email address, because it's a little bit awkward to be receiving jobs about different opportunities to your current jobs inbox because you have that set to your work email. Does that make sense? Anna's saying something, but she's on mute.
I was saying definitely when we were working with teachers in a big school district here, it it was eye-opening to realize how many people used their work email for everything. And we said, no, you really need a personal email. Like you said, you don't want it to be hot girl, whatever. But it was like and this teacher said, so I shouldn't be getting my divorce papers at my school email. Yeah, no,
No.
you really shouldn't be, since we know that corporations, companies, school districts, anybody that, you're part of can.
Yeah, oftentimes that's in the handbook. It expressly says that your work email box is their property and they can go look in there. So I was covering for a coworker who was out sick, so her emails were being forwarded to mine. And because she was communicating with that email and had that email listed on LinkedIn, um, emails from her like LinkedIn account or notifying of these messages were coming to mind, her coworker, about new job applications and interviewing, again, based on her connecting her work email to her LinkedIn profile, and then those being forwarded to me. And so again, you can do whatever you want, but I don't recommend having that happen because it's a little bit awkward. I will note that I did not snitch. I just let her know when she got back that I did see them, and if she doesn't want anyone else to see them, that she should probably make some changes. So,
Kelsey, we have a question
yeah.
in the chat. How long should the headline be? I've seen a mix of short to the point, like their current position, and some are
Mhm.
extensive and include everything that is in their professional wheelhouse. Does it matter?
Um, I think concise is better, um, because you're able to hold people's attention longer. There's a lot of advice going around, and people will say, talk about like what you do or how you help in your headline. And that can be relevant for some people, but if your headline just says, I help people be the best version of themselves, or what, I don't know, just by seeing, if I just see a clip of um your picture and that headline of like, I help people do XYZ thing, maybe they are, who knows what their job is, but it doesn't tell me, it doesn't give me information, and it's not something that leads me to click on it. And so I think being clear and being concise um, is better than really long-winded headlines. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, whoever asked?
Yes, we got an okay, thanks.
Okay. Has anyone seen that? The really long-winded LinkedIn headlines? Okay. Well, it was going around as a popular thing for a while, and um, just because something is popular doesn't mean it's best practice. So, again, you can add where you have experience, but also, again, using keywords in that headline. Birthday. So, birthday is optional in the contact info section. But also know that if it is your birthday and you have that filled out, it is going to send a notification to your connections on your birthday. So that can be good or bad, depending on if you like people knowing that it's your birthday and then reaching out. One thing that it can do, though, particularly if you're job searching, if you have that enabled, it can help boost visibility, because I could get in a notification saying that it's Stephanie's birthday today, and I'm like, oh, I worked with Stephanie a while back. I wonder what she's up to these days. I hope she's doing well. Like Stephanie is such like a great person to work with. Not only would I maybe click on her profile to tell her happy birthday and reach out and check in and connect, again, building those connections and relationships and networking. Um, I also might tell her happy birthday, which again might make her feel good. Um, and that's also a good part of networking. And then also, I'll just mention adding a personal website, portfolio blog, that should also go in the contact information. Okay. Oh, and I skipped one part. So photo. It's really important that you look the part, um, that you look the part and that you look like you in your LinkedIn photo. So upload a presentable or a professional headshot, something where you look approachable. I'm not saying you have to smile, but it helps if you look approachable. Dressed appropriately for the industry or position that you're looking for. And then it's also definitely best practice to update your headshot every couple years or when your appearance changes dramatically. I was also talking to Anne about this, about how we've had people show up for interviews and they have blue hair. And that is fine and that is great. But if your LinkedIn profile shows you with long blonde hair and you show up to an interview, the first thing that someone's going to be noticing and like focused on is like them being thrown off because you don't look at all like your photo. Or same thing, if you're going to meet someone for coffee or going for a networking meeting, you're going to an event and your photo doesn't match at all what you show up as, that can again cause confusion and have people thinking about and focusing on the wrong things. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. about. So we talked about being uniquely you. We talked about the activity that we did last week, and this is really the place where you can start to pull that information in. I specifically in my LinkedIn, I call out I list what I value personally and professionally in my about section on LinkedIn because I want people to know me authentically about who I am and how I show up both personally and professionally. I'm not saying that you have to list what you specifically value, but you can, and I do. So you'll use that activity that you've already did or you're going to do to help you write this intro. Think about it as a bio. So it should be a little bit personal, a little bit professional, and reflecting your personality and experience, leaving the reader with an understanding of what you're passionate about and how that's been a guiding force in your career. Um, you can also, again, talk about your values. You can talk about your skill sets. You can talk about something about experience, but we're going to get to more on that later in a specific section. But this is the portion to like make a first impression. What do you want the reader's first impression to be about you? What do you want them to know about you? I would strongly recommend that you do not write your summary in third person. It comes off as overly formal and impersonal, which creates unnecessary distance rather than connection, which is not what we're looking for. A new feature to LinkedIn is top 5 skills. So they're not asking for 7 like I do in like activity. They're only asking for 5. But what are your top 5? LinkedIn now allows you to showcase and add your top 5 skills that you want to be known for professionally. And so they'll show up here in your about section if you add them, but they'll also show up down below in the skills section as well.
And Kelsey, the about section is where you can be a little more lengthy instead of the headline.
Mhm. That's a really good point, Stephanie. I'm glad that you're bringing that in. Headline should be a little bit like an appetizer, right? Get someone to click on you, have an idea of what they're clicking on, but then you can really elaborate on those different things in the about section. So I thank you for adding that, Stephanie. Okay, activity. This goes back to, again, what people can see that you're doing on the internet, just like your other social profiles. Remember that all comments, likes, things like that live on the internet forever, and depending on your privacy settings, can be viewed by anyone, anywhere, anytime. So I would really recommend that you refrain from posting or interacting with particularly controversial or political content. Um, really anything that you wouldn't say or agree to in front of a prospective employer, don't post it here. So when it comes to LinkedIn, be thoughtful, take the high road. And then, Stephanie, if you don't mind, I was gonna do the thing that we did. So I showed Stephanie something new that she had never seen before when we were preparing for this presentation, because as a recruiter, it's something that is very much part of my screening. So, um, I'm going to go to Stephanie's profile. Everyone can see my screen okay? Yes, okay. I'm going to go to Stephanie's profile. And I'm going to go, there's a specific tab that says activity. So if Stephanie has been recently active on LinkedIn, it will show some of the things here that she's been up to. But you can click on Show All Activity, and it's going to separate for me the posts, comments, and reactions that Stephanie is engaging with. So I can see that Stephanie reposted or posted the 5 worst recruiting mistakes employers make. But I also see that that was 9 years ago. So maybe when we have more time, we can dig into those and how they may or may not be the same or different. But for the sake of this exercise, this shows me all of her posts or lack thereof. It also shows me Stephanie's comments on either companies or people's posts. So again, this one was 9 years ago. And Stephanie's being very encouraging in the comment section of Forbes, which great. And then reactions as well. So this is going to show me the things that she's liking, or because now you can not just like it, you can hit the love button, you can hit the support. There's different options. And so this is showing me the types of things that Stephanie is engaging with and how she's engaging. And so those are things that recruiters are looking at is what are they engaging with? Are they being supportive? Are they being critical? Are they super active? Are they more of a lurker? How does that align with the role that we're looking for? Um, in a past role, we were hiring for a head of sales for our company. As most of you probably know, the head of sales role is very visible and influential position. And so the approach of whoever this is, the head of sales, and their behavior, their approach and behavior is often creating the first impression of a company for a lot of their potential buyers and their customers. And so just like I always do, and in doing my screening, I went and I checked out this person's activity on LinkedIn and found that their public communication style, their values, their content, the things that they were engaging with were very different than what they had conveyed in our interviews, and also very much not reflective of how the company wanted to be represented. So as I'm sure most of you can guess, that person did not end up moving forward in the interview process because of the things that they were engaging with in the community. Questions, comments, concerns, jokes here. Stephanie, how are you feeling?
I was waiting until after the session to go and delete all that stuff.
Okay. But if we look here, Stephanie's like, I can tell what she cares about. She's engaging with like diversity, equity, and inclusion champions. She's supporting people. She's like a good community member. And all of these things that she's engaging with seem very appropriate and relevant to her programming librarian at MetroNet. So, Stephanie, there's nothing for you to be embarrassed about here. I think hopefully it's good and helpful for other people to see. Yes, no, did anyone know about this? Are you going to go look up your own activity after we get off this call? Yep. I found in looking at my activity that I think in general I'm a cheerleader. I love to see people be successful. But I use the same words a lot. And so looking at and reviewing my own activity has made me rethink how I compliment people and the words that I'm choosing to use, just so that I mix it up all the time and not all the time, but it doesn't feel like it is the same all the time or inauthentic because I'm so thrilled for everyone. But I really am, like, I am thrilled, and I can say that in different ways. So that's what I use some of checking on my own activity for. Okay, we're going to go back into presenter mode here. And again, Stephanie, thank you so much. Stephanie is a really good sport. So that's actually something that you should add to your skills list, Stephanie, is that you are a great sport, great at teamwork. Okay, so we're going to present here, present full screen. And we're going to keep it moving. Okay. Experience, get specific. I have to say it, another great thing that you can use that activity for comes into play here. So this section ideally should not be a copy and paste of your resume. They're two different documents. It should ideally be a highlight reel. It should highlight and summarize your specific responsibilities in 3 to 4 sentences. There's also a section where you can link applicable media. And again, here, where appropriate, you want to include those keywords that are really important to the job that you want to be known for, the job that you're looking for, the job that you want to be hired for, as well as, again, how you use some of those specific skill sets in these different roles where you're detailing your experience. I recommend linking your job, whether it's a former job that you're not in anymore or your current job, to the company. If they have a corporate LinkedIn page, not all do, so that's not always an option. But when you do that, it helps provide legitimacy for your role, as well as boosting your visibility so your profile can be found, not just by looking for you directly in the search bar, but if I go to a company's website, there's also a people tab. And so if we'll use Susie Q as an example. If Susie Q is connected to the XYZ website, when I go to the XYZ LinkedIn company page and I'm looking under the people tab, she's also going to show up there. So as we talked about earlier, we want to make sure that it's really easy to find you and that you're showing up, and that you're showing off. And it's absolutely okay to toot your own horn. I think particularly as a lot of us are Minnesotans, sometimes that can feel really hard to do, but this is the place to do it. Um,
I think
I
Councilwoman
all
Ward, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just there's a question about the activity section of LinkedIn, and if they've barely reposted or reacted and have not done any original posts yet, is that a negative mark for anyone?
I don't think so. I mean, with the caveat of like, if you are applying to a social media manager role, that might not be a great thing because it's showing that the job that they're evaluating you for, you're not regularly doing those things. Um, But if it's a job where LinkedIn is maybe not as important to your job, the fact that you are not super active on social media, I don't think, if social media is not part of the job responsibilities to the job you're applying for, it's not a negative that you don't have a lot of activity.
And then I just want to make sure everyone is caught up because when I first heard this information, I panicked and looked at my activity too. So I just want to make sure that we're all like calm and back and
That's so that goes back to the beginning when we were talking about, look through your privacy settings on your different accounts. Look through what you have posted historically, um, and make sure that you feel proud of what you're putting out. Or you don't even have to be proud, but you have to maybe not be embarrassed, like feel okay about that reflecting or that being used as a first impression for someone that you haven't had a chance to explain yourself to yet. Did I answer your question, Stephanie? Okay, great.
thank you.
Um, okay, another thing that I think is really important that I've seen so many times is make sure that the details such as month, job title, like starting and end dates, like the month and the year, your title match. If you have a LinkedIn page and you also have a resume, there have been so many times I've seen them not match up, and that creates additional questions. And we don't want additional questions. We want to make it really easy people to find us, really easy for people to say yes and to see, recognize our value. So again, small details that make a difference, make sure that they match up.
One thing I
Okay.
would say too is you do want to tell the truth here. I do have experience with in particular one where someone in a job I'd had previously and they ask, did this person really do this? It says they did. And it's like, yeah, no, they didn't. That was not their responsibility. So you do have to, one, as Kelsey says, you're tooting your own horn, but you have to toot it accurately because, it is public. People know what's happening. Um, and a lot of people don't hesitate to come out and ask other people that you're connected with, um, is this true?
I love that. Toot that horn, but toot it accurately, Anne. Um, Good. Education. So this is similar to experience. You'll want to link to your educational institution, including major or areas of study. When I say link, to your company or to the institution, the educational institution, do people know how to do that? Yes? No? Maybe so. Okay. Looks like we're getting some head shakes. I don't want to make assumptions about what you do or don't know, and so please do stop me if there are other things that would be helpful. I realize that some of this is probably review for some of you, but the basics are basics and best practices for a reason, which is why we're going over them. So,
We do
um,
have a couple of people who do not know
okay,
how to
great.
link.
I can do that really quickly. Oh wait, I need to. So if I go to my profile and I'm going to edit my experience here, I'm going to click on this button here to add a position. They now include the option to add a career break, which I think is incredible. There are lots of things in life that happen, and career breaks used to be seen as a negative thing and something that they had to explain away. And I think that, and I love that that career breaks for whatever reason, taking time with your family, for having a child, for um, backpacking through Europe, whatever it might be, is becoming much more normal. And so I think even seeing this here as an option is reflective of that in the best, I think, human way. So we go to add a position. And let's say someone make up a position for me. Anne, what do I want to be?
Library director.
Ooh, well, I'm not going to post it because that wouldn't be,
True.
again, tooting accurately, but
You may
library
need it.
director, employment type. I don't fill this out. You can. And then here it says company or organization. So, Anne, where is somewhere that they're going to have a library director?
Well, it would be any public library, any special library, any government library.
Ooh, what about the
Is-
Library of Congress?
oh, sure. I think that position is currently filled, but
Well,
sure.
we can dream big, Anne. Um,
That's right. Library of
so
Congress, and they'll show up here.
Yep. And so here they're showing up, right? So I just start typing in the company, the organization, and when you're doing it in education, it's the same. But then I click on whichever. And then when I hit save, then when I go to my experience tab, it's going to show up and I'm going to be linked to the company. Does that make sense? But I'm not going to click save because I am not currently the library director at Library of Congress or the New York Public Library.
And do you have advice for folks who work for small organizations where there is not a linked page?
I do. I work for Renard Consulting, who does not have a LinkedIn page. And um, if they have a website, but they don't have a LinkedIn page, maybe adding in the section, the experience section, the website, is also totally fine. But um, I wouldn't get worked up about that if they don't have it. Um, Also, as a recruiter, when I'm looking at pages, if I see that there might be one role or position where they don't have it, but they do in others, I just assume they that the company doesn't have a page. But then I will go try to find the company again to verify that it is legit. And so having the link right there to the website for the company makes it a lot easier when people are looking to verify some of that. Is that helpful? Okay. Experience. One thing, no, we already talked about experience. Education. We were talking about education when we got on the link because we're linking our educational institution. You do that again the same way that we just did that with a job. You start typing in the school and it will auto-populate the places that are on LinkedIn, if it's on LinkedIn. So you'll want to include your major, your areas of study. The graduation year is optional, and I get this question a lot. Is like, should I include my graduation year on my LinkedIn or on my resume? And I think the answer is it depends, like so many HR answers, it depends. Um, if you feel like it provides important context, add it. So, for example, if you have recently graduated within the past 2 years or so, adding it might help provide why you might ha not have 5 years of library experience in or whatever other field that you have. Dan, this could be also applicable to you. I know that you're looking at switching, and so including, if you complete a library degree, or including the completion date of that library degree is going to provide some additional context, especially if I look at your profile and see that you've been a software developer for 10 years. So in a situation like that, I would recommend adding the graduation year. Um, However, if you graduated many years ago, like I did, um, you might want to consider removing the year as it's not providing any significant context to your experience, and it just helps people try to make guesses about how old I may or may not be. And you know, flash forward 2 sessions, we'll talk about interview questions, and an illegal interview question is about age. So if they can't ask me that during an interview, I don't want to provide them any additional information so that they can figure it out. Make sense? Yes. Okay. So skills and endorsements. So you're gonna add additional keywords that best reflect your expertise and your experience. You can include, LinkedIn, it lets you include up to 50. So for everyone who was doing the activity with me last week, who was having trouble writing down 7, LinkedIn lets you do 50. So 7 was a fairly easy assignment, clearly. Um, and I see you laughing at me. That's okay. So LinkedIn lets you add a 50. And again, it's going to be one of those population um, fields that pops up as you'll start typing things in and it's gonna show multiple options, which is actually very helpful. I recommend that you add them conscientiously. When you connect with someone on LinkedIn, I think it is best practice to scroll down to their skill section and give genuine endorsements if you're confident and you know that they are good at that. I actually just did that with Stephanie's profile this morning because I was looking at hers, knowing that I would use it as an example and wanted to make sure that I was like being a good community member and vouching for her. I know that she has these skills. I've seen her do them. And so underneath skills, there's just a little button that just says endorse, and all you do is you click it. Super easy. Do people want to see that, or do they feel pretty confident that they can find that on LinkedIn? Okay. For the sake of time, we're going to keep it moving a little bit. Um, but another thing, if you are feeling stuck, um, just like when you're doing the activity that we were doing last week, if you're feeling stuck, take a look at job ads. I think particularly on LinkedIn, it's helpful because a lot of job ads, the poster, the company, the recruiter hiring will include specific skill sets and keywords in the job ad that they're looking for that role. And so sometimes what I will do is I will go if I see a job ad that I'm really interested in, I want to apply for that role. I'll scroll through, I'll look at the skills that they're listing that are required, and I'm like, oh, I've totally done that. I forgot to add that to my list. I forgot to add that to my profile, but I've totally done that. I'm really comfortable with that, and then I'll go and I'll add it to my profile. So if you're feeling stuck, that can be a really helpful way to up your skill set. Because again, I think that we all have a lot of skill sets, abilities, expertise, things that make us uniquely valuable that can be hard to articulate when we're just trying to come up with them on our own. Okay, recommendations. So piggybacking off of that, you all are great in your own way. And so let's let people sing our praises for us. If we're not comfortable doing it ourselves, let someone else do it. So ask previous or current supervisors, teachers, colleagues, someone who knows you within somewhat of a professional sense. This is not somewhere, sadly, I would put a lot of personal references. I would aim for these to be more professional or educational. Ask them to write you a recommendation on LinkedIn. And again, being a good community member, do the same for someone else in your network. The first words here, the first sentence are so much more important. about the person making a strong statement rather than describing how you know them. And so here, definitely quality over quantity. And then I have two examples below. Um, so here's two examples of essentially the same thing. So Suze and I have a long, very long history of working together in multiple positions dating way back to our early days at the Dairy Queen, and I've only seen her grow as a professional since. She's gained many skills, and I would highly recommend her to any job. Everyone loves to work with Susie. Or example number two, Susie Q is thoughtful, ambitious, and possesses a self-awareness that makes her a strong leader among her peers. Her coworkers are always happy to have her positive attitude and strategic perspective working on their project teams. Which recommendation, this feels like a silly question to ask, but which one feels a little stronger? Huh? Number two. And so that is another common mistake that I see on LinkedIn, I see in recommendations is people start off with how they know each other rather than Susie Q is an absolute badass and you should want to hire her for this reason. And am I allowed to say badass on the recording? Because now I've said it two times. Okay, great. So again, these are, you can ask anyone to do it, that has that knowledge of you as a professional, as a student, things like that. As we talked about last week, even if you don't have experience in the specific industry you're looking to get in, you can still include that experience. That is still valid. So if you have a recommendation from someone who is your supervisor at a retail job, don't neglect to ask them to do that because they still can talk about your valuable experience that you can use in your library job. Does that make sense? Um, because all of the experience builds on each other. It's transferable, and so are those skill sets that you have that people can attest to, whether they are your library supervisor or your retail supervisor. And think about this too when you're going to write a recommendation for those as well. Think about writing a recommendation more like the second rather than the first. Okay, honors and awards. This is another place to toot that horn accurately, and list any professional or education awards you've won in this section. If you have specific accomplishments that are tied to numbers or metrics, I would make sure that you also are including those underneath the um, corresponding experience or the corresponding job within the experience section. So if you were able to save the company $3 million by doing a certain project, um, include that because it has specific numbers and metrics underneath the job where you were able to do it. Languages, make sure to include English as well as other languages that you are fluent in, whether that's conversational or working proficiency. LinkedIn also lets you specify your level, because that can also help to boost your rankings in recruiter searchers and again, recruiter searches and again, the visibility. So really important here, particularly in library jobs. I would imagine that speaking multiple languages is a huge asset to be able to help serve the public if you are in a public facing library. So make sure that you are getting recognized for that really incredible skill.
We have another question, Kelsey.
Great.
For those of us who are, quote, of a certain age, how
Yeah.
far back should you go with any of these categories?
Ooh, really good question. I think minimum 10 years, absolute bare minimum. And then beyond that, I would go up to the point where you feel comfortable that the roles you have on there are demonstrating the skill sets and the experience and the ability that are required in order to get the level of job that you're going for. It's not a hard and fast rule, but I think at 20 is fair to say I have 20 plus years. Even if you have 40, you're still telling the truth by saying I have 20 plus years. And there are not a lot of jobs that I know that require 40 years because if you can't do it in 20 years, you probably can't do it in 40 years. And so there are people like me, but again, everyone is different, where you've been doing a job for 40 years. I love that. Like, think about all of the really incredible experience you have, and because of that, and how things have changed and evolved. And that to me is an asset. But I know that there are some people who are concerned about that, and they want to take that potential question mark off the table. And so if that's the case, I think going back, for sure, go back 10 years, go back 20, go back more than that if you're comfortable, but really showcasing the responsibilities and the roles and the skill sets that qualify you for the level of role. Make sure you're going back at least that far. Does that make sense?
I also think when you're going back that far, you want, and if it is in the same job, you want to make sure that you can show how your job changed, how your responsibilities changed, and how you changed. You don't want it to look like it's the same year 20 times.
Yeah.
Um, you want to demonstrate your ability to learn and evolve, and that can come through in your experience.
And to show that you've leveled up. You've maybe been in the same role for many, many years, or been with the same company, but you've changed and evolved in the role and acquired new skill sets that you can apply to wherever there is. So, I think if you're comfortable saying something like, I have 20 plus years of experience in a role, going back that far is plenty, and frankly very admirable that you have. Think about how you could probably get to the 50 skill sets on LinkedIn if you have that many years of experience. Just saying. So 7 shouldn't be hard. Okay, interests. So, this is a place where you can follow the different companies that you work with, the companies you're interested in. I recommend following, for library specific professionals here, following all major national library systems. Follow your local libraries, follow their adjacent partners, follow companies, follow anyone that you're interested in, right? I also would say that follow the companies that you are applying to work, because not only is that going to give you updates about what's going on, and there it also can give you talking points for your interviews to know what's going on at the place that you say that you want to work. So just like any other social network, when you follow these, the posts, the tags, the people are going to help curate the content, the things that you're interested in, on your LinkedIn home feed. But again, keep in mind these are things that are public, and can be viewed by people when they're looking at your profile. And without going to Stephanie's profile, I can tell all of you that she doesn't follow a lot of companies on LinkedIn yet.
I changed it yesterday.
Oh, did you?
I did. I
Okay,
added some stuff.
great. Does anyone here, just to make sure, does everyone know how to follow a company on LinkedIn? It's okay if you don't. I can show that too. But you pull up a company page, there's a follow button, it makes it pretty easy. Okay, great. And then there's some examples of places to follow, that Stephanie put together that are specifically targeted at libraries. So the American Library Association, ALA, any suitable divisions or roundtables, your state library association, Library of Congress, where I might be the library director one day, OCLC, Internet Archive, Overdrive, EBSCO. Is it EBSCO or is it EBSCO?
EBSCO.
Great, EBSCO. ProQuest, other databases, publishing houses. This is not an exhaustive list. And also, all the things that you're interested in don't have to be only library or your job focused. I follow things and companies that have nothing to do with HR, but I just think that they're interesting. And I follow them and I want to know what's going on. Okay. And now I'm going to turn it over to the very good sport, Stephanie, the programming librarian at MetroNet, to talk about volunteering.
All right. So I think the number one piece of advice that folks get in library school if they have not worked in libraries, or maybe they want to work in libraries, whether or not they're going to library school or not, is to volunteer at a library. And it's actually for good reason. You hiring managers want to see library experience, and it doesn't have to be formal library experience. It also, volunteering doesn't need to take a lot of time. You can volunteer for an hour a week for whatever time works for you. It could be a night, it could be a weekend, it could be a morning. But a couple of tips that I would like to convey is be kind, be persistent but kind. Managing volunteers takes effort, and it seems counterintuitive because you are providing free labor, but it does take work on behalf of the library or whoever your volunteer supervisor is. So if the library doesn't respond right away, they might batch volunteers to make onboarding easier for them. They might be swamped. It might be summer and they have too much going on with summer reading. And they just might not have tasks also. Libraries don't always have things for volunteers to do. But if you are new to libraries and you would like to volunteer, tell them that you are volunteering because you want to work in a library. I have had 4 volunteers who have had no library experience, who have then gone on to get jobs in libraries. And it was 4 out of 4. So every single person that I have supervised in a volunteer capacity has gone on to get a library job. And it is because they were upfront about wanting to work in libraries. And that way I could give them tasks that would be more in line with what you would do in a library. So if you have not worked in libraries, and you are just volunteering and you don't tell them that you would like to work in libraries, just be prepared. You're not going to do regular library work regardless. You're going to be doing things like cleaning shelves or cleaning toys, doing craft prep, things like that. But if you tell your supervisor that you would like to work in a library, you might get tasks like you might get a waiting list, which you can then say, I have experience doing weeding, or I have experience finding things on shelves. They might have you shelf read. So you can say you have experience shelf reading, and you are more familiar with the way things are organized in libraries. But you also still might clean shelves. Just know that that might be the situation. And the type of institution you volunteer at doesn't necessarily matter in the beginning. Just having any kind of library experience is important. And then we're going to move on to volunteering when you do have library experience. And this is where volunteering changes, because this is where I'm going to say that volunteering doesn't necessarily mean free labor. It doesn't mean that it's unpaid. You should see what your organization allows for library-related volunteering. Because if you are trying to build your resume and you are trying to get either a promotion or a job in a different institution, it is important to have these things. It's nobody, maybe I shouldn't say nobody, but Kelsey and I have talked about this, about not dreaming of labor. But sometimes you do have to do like extra work in order to make yourself stand out. So yes, see what your institution's policies are, and try to match your skills and interests. So for example, have you done social media before? If you have, then maybe the comms team in your organization is a great place to start. And if you want to learn something more, like learn a new skill, be on that committee. So previous to this, I was working at Washington County, and our tech services team, I think there's a couple of people from Washington County in here. There's at least 2 I saw. The tech services team was a little bit shorthanded. And so they asked for volunteers. And it wasn't unpaid labor. It was just taking a little chunk of your time from your regular duties to go help them. But in the process, you learned some of the skills in tech services that you would not get to if you're just working in a branch. And let's see. Yep. So just make sure you're thinking outside the box, and look at your larger organization. So if you are part of a city or county system, are there committees in the larger organization that you can serve on, again, as a paid employee? Some of my personal examples are at Washington County, we were starting this extended access program where library patrons could access one of the branches during unstaffed hours. And when I first heard about that program, I didn't like it. I was very opposed to it, but I wanted to learn more about it. So I joined the Extended Access team, and it is an active program at one of the Washington County Library branches. It's also in Dakota and Scott County as well. But for me, it was kind of like a know thy enemy situation, like keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So I just really wanted to know more about it. And in the process, I learned that it's not as bad as I thought it was. And I left before it could be implemented at my branch, but my branch was one of the ones that they were looking at for potential expansion. I was also part of the comms team, and I had done social media for my previous library, so it felt like a natural fit. I was Washington County, so when we're talking about the larger organization, Washington County had a DEI trainer program where they trained us all on facilitating specific training sessions around DEI. And so with that, I learned some really valuable facilitation skills, and I got to develop training materials as well right before I left. And there's other organizations. So then thinking outside of your specific organization, there are organizations like the multi-types, or public libraries that need board members. And it is common for these kinds of positions to offer an honorarium. So again, it's not free, free labor. You could run for an elected position with your state library association. You could volunteer to be on a committee. You could volunteer to help plan the conference. And all of those things are going to get you more experience. And if you were on a committee for your state library organization, chances are you will be allowed to do that during work time as well, depending on what the committee is. And then finally, you could look at organizations that are in coalition with libraries. Do they have a board? Do they need volunteers for things? And depending on your organization, they may have a set number of hours per month that you can spend volunteering. And then all of this is going to lead into networking also. So volunteering is about gaining skills, but it's also about meeting people. So here's just a list of different ways that you can network, different opportunities. These are all linked. We'll share these when we share the slides. But the division days through the Minnesota Library Association. There's MILE is the MLA leadership program. And they meet every 2 years or so. I think things got a little bit off track with the Public Library Association conference being here next year. There's the Library Leadership Forum, which Metronet sponsors, and you do not have to be in a leadership position to participate. They meet once a month on Zoom, and that's a really great way to meet people from outside of your type of library. So I've gotten to interact with folks at academic libraries that I never would have gotten to interact with before. And then looking at like nationally, there's, yeah, whatever state you're in has a national library, has a, excuse me, state library association. There's national conferences. There's programs like Emerging Leaders and Spectrum Scholars through ALA. You can be on committees for your state library association or for ALA. And if some of these things like conferences are cost prohibitive and you are a Minnesota librarian, look up your multi-type because we offer scholarships. And that is one thing that all of the multi-types have in common. Each does it a little bit differently, but that we do provide funding to go to conferences, etc. And I really want to reinforce that series like this count. You connecting with your fellow attendees. We've seen a couple of regular people that we can now like call on in sessions and whatever. But I think one of the really important things is you don't know who's going to be on a hiring committee. And it's not always people in leadership positions who are on hiring panels. I can say that I have been on hiring panels for both of my previous public library systems. Um, and it is beneficial in two ways. If you know somebody on your hiring panel, it feels a little less stressful to see a familiar face. And then also, if you have a good relationship with that person, they can vouch for you during the interview process. And um, I'll send it back to Kelsey to wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I love that point that you made at the end, Stephanie, about you never know, oh, you never know, right? And the thing that I continually see in my career is that everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And being curious and again making the time to make those genuine connections can make a huge difference in your career and where you end up. And networking, I think, is not just about giving, but it's also about receiving, right? It's a reciprocal process. So don't be afraid to get to know your neighbors, because you don't know where that next recommendation could come from. Or like Stephanie says, it could be on the hiring committee. They could be just a support system to help you job searching, because job searching can be really difficult. Like, let's be very clear about that. It is an emotional process. It's stressful. It can be exciting, can be a lot of different things, but having people in your corner and having community makes a world of difference. So, as I know that we're about to wrap up here, um, I want to hopefully get some of you to come off mute rather than just call on Dan and Aaron, but I'm not afraid to do it again. Um, I want to know, I want to talk about things like, how did today's session change how you think about your online presence during a job search? Did you learn anything that was interesting? Did any of my bad jokes like make you laugh? Um, I want to hear about, previous networking experiences. Has there been anything good, bad, ugly that's been incredibly memorable or helpful? I would really love to hear from the group.
There is a question about where to put professional organization memberships in LinkedIn, and I believe you might have to add a new section, but it does have its own section.
Great. Yeah. Yes.
And if anyone is curious where to find it, if you go to your profile, there should just be a button that says Add Profile Section.
Any reflections, any thoughts, any questions?
Was gonna say I can share. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, being a part of such a large library system, I'm part of Hennepin County. So when I was studying and when I was searching for my job, I did a lot of networking, but then joining a large county organization, I've taken a step back from doing networking with other librarians across the state. And this just reminded me how important it is to keep that up and get back involved and connect with other folks, even if, like, whether you're looking for a new job or not, you just gain so many skills and recommendations and things to follow to keep progressing in your career. So that was right now, that's like the thing that's on my mind because I'm like, oh, I got to get back into that.
Yeah. And also it's fun. It's like fun to know the people around you who share a lot of the same interests and work that you do.
hmm
So there's definitely, whether you're job searching or not, networking can make a huge difference. So do you pronounce your name Tara or Tara?
Oh, Tara, you had it right the first
Tara. Okay.
time.
I
Yeah,
just want to
thank
make
you.
pronouncing people's names correctly is important. And so thank you for sharing with me, and thank you for sharing with the group, Tara.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate this.
Does anyone
I
else
can,
have anything that they
yeah,
are
I can
willing to
back
share?
on what Tara said because I'm not job searching, but
Yeah.
I've had a LinkedIn profile for years that I haven't touched or updated. So I was particularly interested in jumping into this session because I recognize that I should update it. And there's just a lot I don't know about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So, it was good to get the hints and tips. And, I'm on the other end where more often now where I'm one of the people on the hiring committee. So,
Great. Yeah. So Janine, it sounds like you're sending that elevator of success back down. You've already made it to the top. But it is networking community and success. It's reciprocal. It's a group sport.
yeah, I actually just a couple weeks ago met with a young woman who's just going to be starting library school, who one of my former employees had connected me with, and I had told her about these sessions and to, get sign up for the MetroNet newsletter and look at the job line and different ways of getting her foot in the door. So it's I'm definitely on the other end.
Great. Well, I love that. Thank you for participating. And then last question before we get going. We have another session next week. Next Thursday, 2 p.m. Central, we're going to be focusing on covering resumes and cover letters. I will tell you all, and if you're there next week, you'll hear about how I have a love-hate relationship with cover letters. I think most people do, if you've ever had to write one or read one. So I'm curious to know what challenges you would like us to address specifically, or if there's any content related to those topics that would be the most meaningful or helpful. Because again, that's the goal of this series. So having your input and knowing what you want to know about helps guide our presentation and our discussion and the resources we can help provide.
And if you can't think of anything right away, you can email us. I'm going to put, Kelsey, can you get into the HR email now?
No, we still have to figure out the
Okay.
two-factor authentication. Um, but I was thinking, Stephanie, we can put it in the chat, the HR email, and we should also put it on the slides for
Yep.
next week.
I can get into it, and I checked it to see what the questions were from last week, so I'll do that again.
Okay, so does anyone have anything, any like burning questions about resumes, cover letters, like the very, very exciting stuff of life? No? Okay. Well, you have our contact information. If you do think of anything, please don't hesitate to use it. And again, I want to thank all of you so much for being together with us today, and for being part of in participating in networking and community. It really does make a difference in people's lives. So thank you for sharing your time and your talents and your voices with us. And I hope to see you next week. Thank you all.